Hi there, this is Tony from pianotone.ca, and in this video I'm going to start investigating the DSP effects on the Yamaha PSR-E473 and PSR-EW425 keyboards. These keyboards actually allow two simultaneous DSP effects, with the first channel offering 42 choices and the second channel offering 12. And you can also set the live control knobs to control either of these DSP channels. So demonstrating all of these options in one video would take way too long, so I've decided to start off with one of the most common DSP effects for keyboard players, which is to apply rotary speaker effects for organ voices. Let's check it out. Okay, so just in case you're not familiar with what a rotary speaker effect is, here is a very quick introduction. And I do need to mention that I am in no way a specialist on this topic, and I'm just starting to learn about it myself. I've never actually even touched a real organ. But I have always loved the cool organ sounds from the 60s and 70s rock songs. So I've recently taken kind of a personal interest in learning more about these. So probably the most famous rotary speaker would be the Leslie speaker, which has been around since about the 1940s. And another popular one later on was the Fender Vibratone. These speakers are housed in big cabinets, and the unique thing about these is that they have speakers that rotate. This produces a very unique kind of a pulsating effect, and other than the very first Leslies that were produced, most of them offer two speeds of rotation, and while some models only have a single speaker, others have dual speakers. And that brings me to a very quick side note on organ types in modern keyboards like the Yamaha PSR-E series. Two of the most popular organs in the 1960s would be the Hammond organ and the Vox Continental. The Hammond was very often paired with a Leslie speaker. The Vox, probably not as much so, at least not in the videos or any of the research that I've done. Some famous Hammond organ songs would include Whiter Shade of Pale, Gimme Some Lovin', and Like a Rolling Stone. Some famous Vox Continental songs would include House of the Rising Sun and Light My Fire. So I'm assuming to avoid copyright issues, most modern keyboard manufacturers don't give us organ newbies much of a clue as to which organ sound is which. But in most cases, if you see an organ named rock organ or something similar to that, it is probably meant to be a Vox Continental. And if you see a jazz organ, it is probably meant to simulate something like a Hammond. So for So for demonstrating the rotary DSP effects on the PSR-EW425, I'm going to be using the jazz lead organ voice. Okay, so let's get into the rotary DSP options on the PSR-EW425 and the E473 keyboards. Okay, so for DSP1, the first four effects are my rotary speaker options. The first two simulate a dual rotary speaker, and number 3 and 4 simulate a single. So the first thing I'll do is select that jazz lead voice, which is voice number 29. Now you'll see DSP1 is actually already activated by default for this voice. So let's go into the menu to see what that DSP effect is. Well, that's convenient. It actually defaults to DSP number 1, which is the dual rotary speaker bright slow. So that's slow. Number 2 is fast. So the only difference between the first two options is the default starting rotation speed. Option 1 starts at a slower speed and option 2 starts faster. So I want to set up my live control knobs to control these parameters. So I'm going to hit knob assign until I see number 3 in the menu, which is to control DSP number 1. So now that I'm on 3 there, you can see that's how I control DSP 1. So knob A is the speed control of the rotation. So let's check that out. If I hold a chord, even at the default setting, you're going to be able to hear the rotation. So now let's crank up the rotation, and then I'm going to turn it back down. So this is the speed of the rotation that I'm changing here with knob A. Super cool. Okay, knob B is the LH balance, which is the low-high balance. So that's the balance between the two speakers. One of them is going to be a tweeter for the high-end EQ, and the other one's going to be in the lower bands of the EQ. So let's check that out. So now it's mostly on the high. Now it's mostly on the low. And one super cool thing that I noticed, and I have to say nice touch Yamaha, if I adjust the LH to the high-end speaker and then I quickly crank the speed to the maximum, it's going to reach that speed almost immediately. So it got to the max speed really quick. But if I do that for the lower end speaker, you're going to actually hear that speaker's rotation speed gradually increase to the max speed, which makes sense because it's a larger speaker and it's going to take longer to get there. So now I'm emphasizing the low end. Okay, so that's awesome. So now if I go to DSP number 2, the only difference is going to be that the default starting speed is faster. Everything else works the same. But what I noticed is that this one actually starts at the maximum rotation speed. I can't speed it up anymore. See, that's the same. All I can do is slow it down. And knob B also does the low-high balance for this one. To be honest, I probably wouldn't use this one unless I had a situation where I wanted, all I wanted was a fast rotation and I didn't want to bother hooking up the knobs to achieve that. Okay, so on to the single speaker rotary options, number 3 and 4. So with these two, you're going to hear the overall effect is bassier from the single rotating speaker. So I'll go to the one that's single speaker slow. And knob A is called LFO frequency instead of speed, but LFO frequency is basically just sound oscillation, so this basically is still the rotation speed. And you're going to notice the speed is much the same as the speed on the dual speaker choices if I emphasize the low balance on those. So that's the max rotation speed. Now, since there is only one speaker, there's no LH balance to worry about on knob number B, so instead, we've got options of dry or wet. Dry actually refers to sampling an organ without room ambience, and wet is with room ambience. So as far as I can tell, it's just like adding or taking away some reverb. You can definitely hear the difference as I move these back and forth. So first I'll go to the wet option. And now I'll go to the dry. Okay, so moving on to DSP2, we've got two options here. One of them is a single rotary speaker option, and the other one is dual. So to set that up, I actually have to disable DSP1 first. I really wish that Yamaha had a DSP1 button, just like they have a DSP2 button right beside it, because that would make it really quick and easy to get at that. But instead, I do have to go into the function menu. Now, since I'm already here, I don't have to go navigate to it, so all I need to do is turn to the last option, and I can go upwards to get to number 42, or I can actually go backwards. And number 42 is off, so you'll see that the DSP1 indicator is now gone. So now to get to the DSP choice for DSP2, because I'm already on DSP1, I'm only one choice in the menu away from that. But if I wasn't already on DSP1 and I wanted to get to DSP2 quickly, I could just hold down Shift and press DSP2. And it would automatically go to the first DSP2 option. Now I'm actually going to demonstrate the dual option in DSP2 first. And to activate it, you can see DSP2 isn't lit up here yet, and that's because I have to actually press DSP2 to turn that on. Now for the knobs, I've got to use the knob assign button to switch this to option number 7, which is to control DSP2 parameter A and B. So when I play this one, you're going to be able to tell that this sounds exactly the same as option number 1 on DSP1, which is the dual rotary speaker slow. And the knobs do exactly the same thing. Knob A adjusts the speed. And knob B is the low-high frequency. So why would you bother duplicating this setting on DSP2? Well, rotary effects are super common, and this allows you to have another DSP1 effect. Let's say you wanted a chorus or a distortion effect or something activated as well as a basic rotary effect that you can control with the knobs. This is actually one of the huge features on the E473 and EW425 is the ability to have two simultaneous DSP effects running. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to choice number 1, which is the single rotary speaker. Now you'll notice here that knob A is LFO frequency, so that's the same. But instead of wet drive for knob B is a drive control. So it's basically an overdrive. So this is going to add some volume and some punch basically to the sound. But the important thing to know is that the volume is going to get much higher as soon as I touch knob B, which controls the drive control, because even on the medium setting where the knob is, as soon as I touch it, it's actually going to be louder than what the other organs were. So the minimum setting on the drive control, which is knob B for this effect, is actually going to be the same volume as all of the other organ voices. So for example, if I switch back to voice 2, that's how loud that is. Now if I switch to the voice 1, it's not really any louder. But the second that I touch that knob B drive control, it's going to jump. So I'm actually going to turn it down, but it's going to initially get louder. And then it's going to go, when I get down to the minimum volume on B, then it's going to be the same volume as the other one. So please be warned, I'm about to do that. If you're wearing headphones, please be aware the volume is about to jump. So let's check that out. So now it's at the minimum setting, and it's just as loud as the other DSP effects for rotary were. Now I'm going to turn this up to the max, just so you can see how loud it gets. So once again, be careful with your ears. I'm about to increase the volume quite a bit. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. I do hope to be adding more videos on other DSP effects on these keyboards in the future, but I wanted to get this first one out there because organs and rotary speakers are super cool. And this video also kind of shows you how to get started on using the knobs for working with your DSP effects in general. So you can go ahead and start testing out all of these other different DSPs on your own if you want to. So thanks so much for checking out this video. If you like the content, please feel free to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. That does really help me out. I've got links in the description to my full review on the PSR-E473 and EW425, as well as some links to some online piano training I recommend. So thanks again for stopping by. Happy piano and organ playing, and have an awesome day.